Hey friends, welcome to part 2 of class 1 where we will be looking at some level shifters. Alright, so let's start. We're going to start with this one. Let's jump into it. Alright, so here we are at the level shifter. Now, this is probably going to be the more difficult basic structure, but I'm going to show you how to identify it by also using one of our challenge examples, just so you guys can understand what this is. Now, what's a level shifter? So with box pleat, this level shifter, as you can see right now, this is normal. If you were to fold this in half, this is just one grid unit. A level shifter will allow you to flat fold and basically shift up one layer, one grid unit. So in this case, it's one unit to the left, one unit to the right. And it will, on the back, as you can see, close up all the way to the seams. Now you can't quite see what the rest of this will be, but I'm going to use this, which is our challenge example. And you can see that there's level shifters on both sides, and it collapses all the way in and allows you to treat the rest of the model just like a regular accordion grid. So that's kind of the concept of a level shifter. Now, how do you identify this? So, if you can take a look at this crease pattern, this is our challenge example. You'll notice this part right here is the shifted units. So it's 4 length instead of 2 right here, according to the vertical lines. And following this shift up, you also see a gap of 2 on each side, which resembles, on our model here, this space right here. The other important thing about identifying level shifters, at least this specific one, is that the shifters are these little 1-unit diamonds, and they are all valley folds. So you can see the diamonds are blue on every side. And with that combination, that's how you're going to be able to identify these. So I'll have you guys do an exercise later of practicing how to identify these. But for now, I'm going to show you with this level shifter how to pre-crease these and collapse them, because they're kind of strange. Alright, so now to pre-crease this, as you can see, I have my accordion grid. There's both a folding sequence or you can just kind of crease it on whim, so I'll show you both. These level shifters, I do recommend to crease all valley, just because it will make your collapse a lot easier, especially if your model is a much larger grid, like a 48 grid. For example, my Samurai version 3 uses level shifters, and it's just way easier to manage by creasing them the right direction. So, at first, you can see this horizontal mountain fold, and then right here is a valley fold on both sides. So, we're going to want to crease that down like this, and then our level shift is obviously of 4, 1 on each side. So we're going to mountain fold this, and this might interfere with your accordion grid. Don't worry about it for now. Go for it like this. Now I'm just going to show one side of the folding sequence way of pre-creasing, but basically you can see we have our model here. I'm just going to flip it over, and in this corner where we folded the shift, you are going to just do a diagonal kind of reverse fold. So let me make sure you guys can see this. Like this, just 1 unit. And it's a reverse fold, so kind of here. It's hard to show, but once it's creased, I'll show you. Now this method is easy to keep track of, but I find you can often lack some accuracy when doing this. So you obviously want to stay as precise as you can, but you can see right here, it's kind of a reverse fold like this. And that will get you your valley folds on every side. The other way to do it is just, if you know where this level shifter has to be, you can flip it over and again do the free fold crease method like this, and just use the grid as your reference. That way you can crease everything. Mountain fold, which I find is easier to pre-crease in the air, and a little bit more precise because I can go point to point. Like that. And we have our pre-creasing all done. All right, so how do we collapse this level shifter? Now there's a couple ways to do it, so I'm gonna show just a few ways. Now the first way is more fold sequency. So generally what you would do is, again, we're gonna use this line, this mountain and valley on our grid, and fold that first, right? That's gonna come over each other, just like that. I'm gonna do one side first, so we're gonna take this mountain fold that we used to help pre-crease like this, and as you can see, the bottom part is valley, mountain, mountain. That would be our regular grid. So I am just going to try to fold the bottom part just back to itself, which should be pretty easy. And you'll see we're starting to concave in right here. And what happens is if we try to do this together with the top mountain fold, it's going to start stretching where that level shifter is, and it's going to pop out the mountain fold on the inside, kind of like this, right? And as long as you line up the valleys as such according to your pre-creasing, you start to get the structure to close. And that's all it takes, just like that. Boom. Now sometimes it'll be easier, sometimes it'll be harder. As you could tell with that one, you saw my paper get stuck a little bit, so it wasn't as nice of, or like as smooth of a sequence as you could sometimes get. Now to avoid that, sometimes you just don't even need to do this kind of sequence, and you can just open, and as long as you know where the pre-creased lines are, again, you can kind of just go for the collapse. Just kind of like we did with the Elias stretches, is you line up these valley folds with the mountains. You just start going, and then you just fix your creases as you start collapsing. And it kind of works in the same way. You might not see too much of a difference between the two. Just like this. Now, there's another way to collapse these level shifters, which involves more of a sync fold. I'm not going to show that just because it's kind of complicated to show on camera, and I'm trying to be concise on time. But so that you guys can see the finished structure, I'm just going to open it up a little bit like this. All right, my camera cut out right there. But what I'm going to do is open up this structure a little bit so you all can see how the creases align and the direction that the level shifters kind of change so that we can get the shifts out just like this. Here's the back side, and when it closes back up, looks like this. And I'll quickly show the Kami in case this helps you see a little bit better, since the white paper is a little bit hard to see. But that is how you collapse these, and if these cause you a lot of trouble, just practice with this exercise first, because I've basically simplified it all down before you move to harder level shifters. All right, so we're going to move on to some of our exercises. Now that you've known how to do this, we're going to look at the level shift open and close. So as you can see on the top and bottom of the model, it returns back to the original grid size. And see, the crease pattern looks like this. And this will be labeled as like Crease Pattern Level Shift 2, something like that. But you'll be able to find this in the description. And I've included the Arepa folded model of both the X-ray and this, so you guys can kind of have an example. As you can kind of see through this one a little bit, you'll see the X-ray. Now the key thing about this is this kind of level shifter. You'll notice when we fold over the layers, it's going to cause, when you crease back as the grid over a folded ledge, that's where you get this pattern of the mountains and valleys switching along the vertical lines. So we'll talk more about how this happens later, but this is how you can identify the order that you're supposed to fold a crease pattern in, as you can see from here, kind of. And we'll get more into that later on identifying what you collapse first, but generally you will collapse the level shifters first, as that's just normally the main thing to do. Normally they're in the center of the model and you kind of go center outwards. Cool. So I want you guys to practice this one. I'm not gonna fully show how to do it. It's just like the other one. I think you all got this, and we'll move to our next kind of challenge or exercise. Okay, so this is probably a bit more of the challenging exercise I have for this first crease pattern class. So this is an accumulation of Elias stretches and kind of double level shifters, and then some structures that we haven't really gotten to talk to about in here. Now this would be a really good challenge to try. I don't want to spoil too much of it, as it'll be really good to kind of work through it, kind of figure this crease pattern out. Now, what does this make? So this is the collapsed model. As you can see, we have some short flaps, some long flaps, and then we have this kind of two level shifters right next to each other that form kind of what's, I don't know, people use it as like insect shells or whatnot. You can kind of get creative with this. Actually, you can kind of imagine this as like the front half of a beetle. So yeah, give this one a shot. It's a 16 grid. The other one was 12, and then the Elias was 8, just for reference. And I think if you're able to accomplish this collapse, then you're very well on your way and will be perfectly ready for the next class. So I'm gonna leave you guys with this one. Practice this exercise. If you can't get it, no worries. After the next class comes out, you can come back to this one and you'll probably be able to collapse it. All right, so this exercise is a little bit different than what we've done. We're not actually gonna fold anything, but I want you all to try finding crease patterns online that use the structures that we learned in this class. So we'll be doing this exercise pretty much every class as we learn new structures. This right here is the Samurai V3 crease pattern. And what you would do is you would just grab this crease pattern and kind of try to identify where you see structures and identify where you don't know what the structure is. That way you can just kind of learn and see what you can look forward to in future classes or what questions to ask. So for instance, right here we have the level shifters that we learned. And again, you can kind of see the explanations that I use to identify these. Now, say for instance, here we have a small case of a Elias stretch or just a diagonal collapse. This section is almost like the rectangular Elias stretch that we did. It's cut off a little bit, but you can see that at least this portion of it collapses like we would that middle section. You can also see here, this combination is the sword kind of structure exercise that I had you all do. So this one. And then maybe you don't know what these are, so you know, that's something to look forward to. Maybe this structure is kind of looking a little strange. Here, this might be confusing. This is actually just a 1 unit Elias stretch like this. And I'll explain more what those can be used for later. But yeah, so go out, find some box pleat crease patterns, and try to identify some of these structures for yourselves. Other than that, that's all for this video. So thanks for making it through. Practice these exercises. Leave a comment below for me just to, you know, see maybe there's something more you want to learn or something you're confused about, and I'll try to explain it as best I can. Other than that, class 2 will be covering some more structures that are a little bit more complex with some harder exercise and practices. But yeah, thank you so much. Feel free to leave a like, follow my Instagram so you can message me. And yeah, but I'll see you guys in the next class.
All this origami, all this origami, all this origami got me going kamikaze now.